What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. It's Miami week, and we've got a loaded podcast, so I'm going to get right into it. We've got Mike Partham. You know, he's been all over Trainwreck Sports, and he is here to talk some Buffalo Bills today. And one of our recurring guests, one of our favorite guests, definitely the best beard we have on the podcast networks, that's for sure. Kyle from Circle the Wagons. Go follow him on Twitter and Instagram. He's been killing it all over the place. Guys, let's get right into it because we know what we're here for. I mean, we've not even this week, everybody's been getting ready. Like this game, since the schedule came out, everybody looked at the 3 games. It's like, okay, we got Monday night. We know that's going to be big. But really, like Miami, that first matchup with Miami, we're looking forward to. And I feel like even with the way week 1 has gone, now both of these teams like very much feel like at the top of their powers heading into what is a heavyweight fight. So we're just going to get the vibe check. I'll start with you, Mike. How we feeling? It's Thursday night, 7:04 Eastern time. How do you feel ahead of Sunday at 1?
I recall last year when we were heading into week 3 matchup and Dolphins fans were just feeling themselves and just talking so much stuff. This is my first time on the show. I don't know what the language requirements are here.
Anything.
Okay.
Let it fucking fly, Mike.
I'll try to be a little restrained in the name of, the kids that are watching, all six of them. I just feel like the winner of this game, if the Dolphins win, they're well on their way to winning the division. If we win this game, then it's going to be a boat race until the very end. And if the Dolphins win, I mean, the fans are already insufferable as it is. They were insufferable last year. I recall last year, there must have been at least 5 or 6 different ways that game could have gone, 5 or 6 different plays. You remember the classic Steve Tasker line from Four Falls of Buffalo. If that play would have been different, we would have beaten. Every game, there's one play like that. Last year, I felt like there's 5 or 6 of those plays. And of course, I'm sure they were saying the same thing about the game in Buffalo later that year. And of course, both teams had excuses, whether it was injuries on offense or defense or the unbearable heat, the weather conditions, whether they were cold or hot. Now we're getting now it's flipped. Now we're getting a perfect summer, post-summer, early fall day in Buffalo for a change. So I don't feel like there's going to be that many excuses from an injury standpoint, a weather standpoint. And we're getting both teams coming in at their very best. Also, it should be noted, and I was chatting with you about this before we went on. It doesn't feel like the Dolphins have played anybody world-beating, but then again, neither have we. And we kind of stumbled against the Jets, of course, and hopefully have found our footing since. But I expected to win the last 2 games. This game, it's like the mega powers colliding. It's like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Very well said. Kyle, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. So obviously it was a pretty disappointing week 1. Week 2 obviously looked a lot better. Week 3, we looked phenomenal. Obviously the Dolphins are looking good. I mean, Dolphins fans are not the greatest fans to deal with out of everybody in the world when you're a Bills fan. So I want to win this really bad based on previous history. I mean, Josh Allen 8 into 27 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, 106 QB rating, 4 AFC Offensive Player of the Week against the Dolphins, 7-0 at home against them. I feel like usually we go into this and they win. And like Mike said, I mean, neither of us have really played outstanding opponents. Obviously, Denver's been in a lull with the new defensive coordinator. So I do feel like it's going to be a big game. I feel like it's going to be lots of scores. It's going to be really exciting. But I am expecting to come away with the win, and I'm proud to say it.
Can we just speak to that 70-point burger hung up on Denver of all teams? I mean, let's put some historical perspective, and that's what I like to do more than anybody else. I'd like to think 3 other teams in the history of the NFL have scored 70 points in a game: the 1940 Bears in the championship game, the 1966 Redskins, I should say, and the 1950 Rams. Now, doing my homework, the 1950 Rams that year were the number 1 overall offense in points and touchdowns, but I never hear them get brought up as far as the greatest offenses of all time. The 66 Redskins were like top 10, but they weren't like, world beaters. So, I mean, I look at it as more the Broncos were just laying down for the Dolphins at one point. Then the Dolphins were just, hammering them. Did you see that the one still shot where I think I was Tyreek's running through the defense and there's 5 or 6 guys like laying face down, strewed across the field like it's the aftermath of a Braveheart battlefield or something like that. It's just a massacre. So I don't know how much stock I put into 70 points when it's the Broncos and it looks like they just look defeated. The week prior, of course, I don't know. I mean, the Patriots have a pretty good defense, and they held the Dolphins to 24. And we're last time I checked, we're like at least number 1 or number 2 defense out there.
Number 2. I think that you're making a great point there because the reality is the Dolphins offense is not going to score 70 points every game, but they're probably better than 24. They're right somewhere in the middle, I think, and that's 70 points in a game. You have to have a team that's unmotivated at some level, like NFL teams just.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, then that's to your point about the Broncos. I mean, obviously the talent level and everything, but the Broncos, like you said, like at some point they were just like, man, we don't care. Like, can we get home, please? Like, this is miserable. And the Dolphins were just running all over.
And you also have to have a couple of defensive touchdowns or game-flipping turnovers. Going all the way back to 1940, there were at least 3 defensive touchdowns in that 73 points that the Bears put up. So it's usually not all just offense. You have to flip the field a few times in order to reach 70. Usually. Yeah,
it speaks to what the capability of this offense is, but I don't think it's indicative of what we should expect Sunday, because I think that, like you're saying, with the mega powers colliding and it's irresistible force meets immovable object, it really is, because if there's one thing in football that can stop a high-powered offense like this, it's a dominant defensive line who can get in the quarterback's face, can push the pocket, especially from the interior. And so far, what the Bills have shown, not just through 2 weeks, but through 3 weeks, is the ability to terrorize opposing quarterbacks. Now, the caveat is Tua is the best quarterback of the bunch by far. Mike McDaniel is the best offensive coach, I think, of this bunch by far. And I am always terrified of Tyreek Hill being on the field. And that's not even to say without Jalen Waddle will be back this week too. And Devon Achane had, 2 over 200, whatever his coming out party he had last week. Like, the speed is there. This is obviously their toughest matchup, but that defensive line can be all the difference in the world. And I've spoken about how optimistic I was about this defensive line coming into the season, because they've been trying to address it. Like, clearly it hasn't worked. Boogie Basham, the biggest reason why, but or biggest example of how it hasn't worked initially. But this year it feels like it's all really coming together. This is still a defense that is having Von Miller return in a couple weeks, but I feel like that's the biggest difference in this game. If that D line can push into Tua, it's a completely different story. And there hasn't been a team that's done that yet. I think the Patriots maybe have done the best job, though, like you were saying.
Well, can we say that the improved defensive line might be due in part to Sean McDermott's use of simulated pressure rather than having to dial up blitzes, as in sending four different 4-man rushes each time rather than sending an extra man, and just trying to vary that up?
Oh, yeah. I think McDermott has done a great job with the the way the defense's aggression level has looked different. I think the guys look like they're flying around. I think the pressure does look like it's coming from various different ways, different, like you're saying, different type of simulations and everything like that. Like, I've been impressed with McDermott. I really wasn't too worried, Kyle, as much as anybody else about McDermott taking over this defense. And I feel like now there's something to the fact where, like, Rousseau, I think a couple weeks ago, talking about how, like, this is the most I've talked to him, like this, we get to communicate some more and everything else. And I feel like him having that, direct contact and being able to coach these guys up directly is really helping them out.
Yeah, it's a huge difference, from before having a defensive and an offensive coordinator. And it's like you're overseeing, but you're not physically in it all, and that was like the problem with the 13 seconds, not to bring it up and stuff. It was just too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. It was just too much chatter all over the place. So this definitely streamlined things. And it's been a dramatic difference in the defense. Like, I mean, I thought Leslie Frazier did a phenomenal job. For sure. Like, we have the least points allowed, most points scored since 2020. So obviously he did his job. Everybody was doing their job. But this year, it just looks different. Like, we're not doing the pressure, but the schemes we're doing, we're getting to the quarterback. Everybody seems fired up. And how much of a difference does that make when the coach specifically talks to you and tells you what to do compared to hearing it like through the wire and stuff from somebody else? So, yeah, loving McDermott calling the defense so far this year.
Definitely. Well, Mike, how have you felt about the Ken Dorsey experience on offense after the first couple weeks?
Well, I mean, after the last couple of weeks of just beating up on average defenses, I feel a little better, but I've got some questions here. Like calling a slant pass on 4th and long, or was it fourth and no, it was the slant pass on 4th and a foot, basically. Yeah. Instead of just plunging, like every other team is doing. And the NFL was even talking about outlawing this season, the tush push, as they say. Yeah. A wide receiver screen to Diggs on 3rd and long, a handoff on 2nd and 10. Like, these are things you're not going to get away with when you're in a shootout with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah. The 2nd and down handoffs I'm glad that Twitter was collectively upset about it, because I was sitting there at first without refreshing the feed, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is like my cousin's 10-year-old playing Madden, just running the same 3 plays over and over again. What are we doing?
I think men players could have better strategies than this. Crying out loud.
The biggest thing that bothers me that he has done, and he's done it multiple times, is even on that screen to Diggs, it's on the short side of the field and everything's coming over to him. And I feel like he does a lot of things like wrong. Like, I don't know. It's nothing. This is just like, it feels like his intention is always right, but he has not figured out the timing of when to do these things. Like, he is not usually, like, that's what he's still learning, is like getting in the rhythm, getting in the flow of like, maybe I should hold off on this and save it for another time, or maybe I should use this one earlier. Like, I feel like that's what he's still adjusting to more than anything,
Usually on a wide receiver screen, correct me if I'm wrong, you would usually have the quarterback pump fake to one side to get the defense, taking a step the other way, and then throw it to the other side where you have a couple of blockers in front, and then the receiver can find a lane. I feel like whether it's Allen just doing it or they're not scheming it up to say, hey, put a pump fake in there, he's just immediately throwing it out in the flat to whether it's a wide receiver or a running back, and the defense is just keying on that because they're not being misdirected one way or another, which is something the Dolphins on their side love to do. I'd love to see us do a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of the offense that I would love to see, a lot of the Dolphins offense that I would love to see the Bills incorporate, because the Dolphins offense, that's what drives me, man. That's what makes me so mad about the Dolphins, is because if they were any other team in the NFL, I would love them. And I think everything they're doing is beautiful. And I would want to watch every second of it. And I can't enjoy it. I can't do anything. Nothing's enjoyable about it to me. I like Tua. I like Mike McDaniel. I don't like Tyreek. No, I mean, no one should like Tyreek, but like the rest of this roster, I'm like, there's guys on it. There's talent that I like. I liked Waddle in college too. It's really upsetting that this is the Miami Dolphins right now. And I feel like that's just a personal, like, that's just like something that makes this tension just built up, because, we thought, like, you look at the past, right, 9-1 against the Dolphins, like the past, however many years beating the Dolphins, at least the one constant was like, man, at least the Bills, I think we could still beat the Dolphins this year. You know what I mean? Like, we're still going to go 2-0 against the Dolphins, all these things. And now, like, for the spot to feel threatened after a couple years of dominating the division, but Kyle, also just the fact that it is the Dolphins and they are coming up the way that they are coming up. I feel like that's built into or helped build up this week more than anything else. And even way more than last year. They had some obviously hyped up games last year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Dorsey, not to go into it too much, but I definitely was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, I could literally be playing a game of Madden football and call better plays than this. And it's like, yeah, we're still winning, but like, what could we be doing if we had the creativity that we had when we had Dable? Or what could we be doing if we had the creativity of McDaniel or Andy Reid or something? And it's like, you never see any of these creative plays. It's like, are we saving everything for in case we get to the playoffs again? I just don't understand why you never see like this play and you're like, wow, how did he think of that? Everything's so very basic and it just seems like not coordinated good enough. So I'm surprised like that we're doing as good as we did, but like I'm watching the games and I'm cringing even though we're winning because I'm like, we could be doing double the amount of points at what we're doing and like just playing Allen for the first half and sitting him the rest of the game. So I definitely want to see what Dorsey has up his sleeve for McDaniel this week.
Does anybody know what we're doing with Dalton Kincaid at this point? I heard he was supposed to be the new slot receiver, that he's not this tight end guy that he's officially listed as.
Yeah.
What was it, 2 catches for 3 yards this last game? Yeah. He was more of a phantom than his tripping call that never existed.
I feel like that's more on Josh than it is anything else too. I feel like Josh is throwing a lot of balls to Gabe Davis in more coverage than giving Kincaid a chance. And maybe it's just rhythm and just like getting into routine. But there is ways that Kincaid could be a huge help in this game because the Bills are going to have to be methodical. Like the Dolphins are going to try to take away. They're just going to dare Josh to take everything short and take all the profit and let him make his own mistakes. That the Dolphins are going to bet on him to do that. And Kincaid could really help in this scenario. Maybe being home will help. I mean, it didn't help a couple weeks ago, but obviously last week he was in blocking a lot more than he has been too, which I did not expect him to be used as much of a blocker that he's been used as. But I think it's a Josh thing because Josh also looks to Knox a lot more this year, earlier in the year than I thought. Like I was wondering how much usage Knox would get on routes and everything, and I feel like just I don't have any of his stats or targets right in front of me, but I feel like I'm just hearing his name even more than I thought it would be. So maybe it's something that'll develop over the year. I'm surprised. Who I'm shocked about? Trent Sherfield, like is. Where is Trent Sherfield? Is he on the Bills?
Where is Sherfield?
Is he on, like it's hilarious. Talk about Madden. If you use Trent Sherfield on the Bills in Madden, he's like a tank, and then you watch him in real life, and it's crazy. And that's why I wonder how much of it is Josh and how much of it is the scheme, because the scheme, in theory, should spread the ball around, but we don't know how much we can trust Dorsey either. So it's like, who do you trust more and who do you want to put the blame on? So I feel you, Mike. It's confusing.
From what people are seeing on all 22s, the guys in the short throws and medium throws are open. Josh had previously, I guess, at least as far as the Jets game is concerned, wasn't seeing them and was trying to hit the home run balls a little too often. It's like, and a little of that is on Dorsey because he's ultimately the offensive head coach, and you can lead a horse to water, but you also have to make it drink too. So whatever Josh's bad tendencies are, and if they're coming back because Ken Dorsey isn't, pulling on the reins like maybe Brian Daboll used to, getting in Josh's face on the sideline, maybe he needs to do a little bit more of that. Maybe not from the sidelines. Maybe Dorsey prefers to be upstairs looking at an all 22 view of things. But ultimately, even if Josh is making bad decisions out there, Dorsey's got to be the one to get him out of that, because they can let go of Ken Dorsey. They're not letting go of Josh Allen. We're stuck with him for better or for worse. We're stuck with him. We're glad to be stuck with him. Okay.
Yeah.
But Dorsey ultimately has to be responsible for getting Josh to take the easy throws. He's got to let Josh find his inner Joe Montana when all he's trying to be is Dan Marino. And if you know your history, Dan Marino, after those first 4 years of just lighting up the NFL, setting rookie records and all-time passing records, the league figured him out. You make him throw short, you make him try to be a quarterback, and he didn't want to do that, or he just wasn't good at it. And especially once he lost his 2 top receivers, the Marks brothers, then he was still good, but he was more mortal. And I think Josh has done better at that. He's just been inconsistent at sticking to it.
At sticking with it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my theory on Kincaid is the blocking for sure. So it was like last year, 2 years ago, Knox had an unbelievable year. Last year, everybody thought that Knox fell off a lot. But the thing was that Knox was on like 20% more plays trying to block for the quarterback because our OL was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, what happened, we didn't allow any sacks. And I mean, I think he was only like pressured really bad one time. So it's like there's a big difference with the blocking this year. And I feel like that's why Knox is getting open because now Kincaid is helping to block a lot. So I've been wearing a Kincaid jersey every week. I'm waiting for him to score his first touchdown. I'm the most excited about him since I've been excited was Josh Allen. So like I think he's going to be a big difference maker, but I guess maybe it's just taking time and we're not really seeing as many like 2 tight end sets and formations as I thought we would.
Yeah, I think it's coming for our young guy. I think it'll come in the future. So we've set the stage here, guys. As we wrap up here at the end of the show and everything else, what do we think's happening Sunday? I'm starting with you, Mike, putting you on the spot first, and then go to you, Kyle. Sunday, 12 o'clock my time and Kyle's time, 1 o'clock your time, Mike, and in Buffalo. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Tyreek Hill had his comments yesterday about not being fazed by the atmosphere, saying it's the same thing. Tyreek Hill should not be fazed by the Buffalo Bills in his experience in life. So I don't think that should take any into account. Tua is the one who might be fazed by it. I feel like that's who it matters more than anything. But what did you say, Mike?
Last time I checked, didn't we knock him out of at least 2 of the 3 games he's gotten injured in?
It's true.
Were one of those at least one of those Matt Milano, or were both Matt Milano?
I believe. Well, I know at least last year was Matt Milano. I don't remember if the other occasion was Matt too, but Matt Milano definitely is on Dolphins fans' minds. They are scared of Matt Milano on Sunday, which I feel good about.
Well, from what I understand, our history with Tyreek Hill has actually been pretty good in the regular season, regardless of Chiefs or Dolphins. It's a couple of times he's burned us in the playoffs. That's really been the issue, but we've been held him to at least under 100 yards every time we faced him in the regular season. Now, as far as the fans go, I mean, we tried to break the Guinness World Record a few years ago and realized we didn't have the stadium to do it. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll see how that goes then, and once we get our Tottenham Stadium built. But I doubt that we're going to be that much louder just because Tyreek is pushing our buttons. I mean, it's already Bills-Dolphins. It's already a heavyweight title fight, as you mentioned, in September. We're already going to be loud and angry and raucous as it is. We didn't need Tyreek to knock the hornet's nest out or something like that. But as far as what I'm feeling for what's going to happen, it's going to be a shootout. I mean, our defense might contain them a little bit better than most other teams, but I mean, Tyreek is ultimately going to get behind our safeties, I think, a little bit better than other teams we faced so far. Our pass rush has been good. McDermott's dialing up, simulated pressure, but here's some stats to think about. Tua Tagovailoa leads the league in average time to throw 2.28 seconds. He's also got 10.1 yards per attempt. That's like 2 more than the next guy, who is Brock Purdy, I believe, leading the league in a few other things. The Dolphins' total offense, let's see, the gap between number 1 and number 2 is the same as the gap between number 2 and number 23. That's 134 yards, more yards that they have than the number 2 offense, I believe. So the Dolphins are no joke. No. I mean, I think our defense is going to ultimately be bend but don't break. And a
lot of hands up.
If you can't get to him in 2 seconds, get your hands up. That's what I've been hearing.
Groot's tall ass. He's got to be waving those arms everywhere,
To grow his arms like the actual Groot is what it's going to have to do.
Stop. Stick it right through the ball, That's what we need.
Taking away Tua's first read, he seems to be, from what I understand, a first read quarterback. If we can do that, we can get maybe by a second or 2 more to get to the quarterback. Yeah. If we can do that, then maybe we can, make him see ghosts and have some bad memories of Bills games of past. But I mean, and don't sleep on the Miami running offense either. I mean, maybe it was just, again, the Broncos acting like Swiss cheese out there, but I ultimately, I think it's going to be a shootout. Both teams are going to score at least in the 30s. As far as who's going to win, I guess the fact that we have a top 2 defense, I'd give the edge to us, but only by like 3 points.
Okay. Well, you're right on there with Vegas too at the moment. I think it's right at it went up to -3, started at -2.5. What about you, Kyle? How are you feeling? We are at 7:27 Eastern. You got, so what we got? What, any quick math? Any of you guys good at math? Because I'm certainly not. I don't know how many hours away that is, but how are you feeling?
I'm thinking one good thing it's not snowing and we can't throw snowballs. So that's a first. But I'm thinking it's not going to be a crazy shootout, like Mike was saying, and everybody's expecting, the Dolphins are so hot and the Bills have such a potential for a crazy offense. I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think there's going to be some struggles on both sides. I think the running game will be important. I do think it's going to be like 28 Bills to like 24 Dolphins, and we're not going to win by like a landslide, but I think we're going to put the heat on Tua. I don't care about 1 or 2 games against random opponents. Over the past 3 years, our defense has been phenomenal. Our offense has been phenomenal. We're in the top of the league. These are just the first 2 games, but the history we have is going to prove that we can beat the Dolphins again. And so far, we've dominated them over the past like 4 years. So I don't think it's anything different just because they had 2 big games. All of a sudden, I'm not like quaking in my boots thinking they're going to dominate us and they're going to throw for 500 yards, 5 touchdowns passing, 5 rushing touchdowns. That's not even going to be close to what happens. Just like what Mike was saying with that still, I mean, it looked like an earthquake hitting Denver every play. All the guys were just laying on the ground. They said that was like the most tackles they've ever seen in like the history of the NFL. Like guys were just falling all over the place. I don't know what was going on, but that's not going to happen this week. Loving the addition of Leonard Floyd, loving McDermott calling the defense. As long as we lock some things together on offense, I think it's going to be a game changer. I'm sure all the announcers and everybody's going to be saying the Dolphins are going to crush us and stuff, but I think it's going to be very close. It's not going to be as many points as everybody thinks, but we're definitely going to come away with the big dub.
All right. I think that this is the biggest thing about this game for both fan bases that they're both going to flip out about. Is this going to be a much more normal football game than the last couple of weeks have been? Like, it's not like the Dolphins were living in a fantasy land last Sunday and thinking that, and like, so of course they're going to talk their shit, go crazy this week, but even the Bills 37-3, any other week that a team doesn't score 70 points, that's the most dominant performance of a week. And it should have been a shutout. Like, really, you're almost at a shutout to the end of the game. That's as dominant as you can get to us on all phases of the ball. So both these teams are coming in at the tip of their powers. And I just, what you were talking about, Mike, with Tua being a one read guy and everything else, and what you were talking about, Kyle, with the Dolphins and the history of the last couple of years, like, they have been extremely impressive. You can't take it away, and they could definitely come out of Sunday with a win, but they have not truly been knocked off of rhythm by a defense yet. I mean, that Patriots game a little bit, but they were still in rhythm most of that game, made a couple of mistakes. Patriots held Tyreek really well, which Belichick's going to do is just take away one thing and make sure you don't get to use it. And so when you have to adjust to that, they made it work. They were still had some explosives and everything else, but I feel like this Bills team can knock them off rhythm more than anybody else has done. And I don't know what McDaniel and Tua look like off rhythm yet this year. And playing from behind is definitely a thing that they don't have a lot of experience with. How can they, if the Bills get up to a 14-0 lead, how do they play out of structure? How do they play when they can't just run their offense completely? I do think the run game is a big key for the Dolphins, because this Bills run defense, we talk about how elite the defense has been under McDermott. The one thing that's been tough is the run defense every year, especially some big performances. And with a guy coming in who just had 250 yards, he could do that to this Bills defense tomorrow, or on Sunday. And I would not be surprised, because we've seen Jonathan Taylor do it a couple years ago. We've seen examples of guys have these big games. So I'm as scared as I am of Tua in the passing game. I feel like the run game needs to be a concern too. All that being said, Josh Allen has dominated the Miami Dolphins his whole career, and I think he's also playing the best football of his career, specifically last week. Just the patience, the decisiveness, everything else. I feel like he's coming in a great mindset, and I'm just not picking against him at home in this situation. So I think it's close game. I have it like 35-34, 30-33-31, like something like that. I think it's in the 30s. It might be first team to 30, maybe 31-28, but I think it's a high scoring game. Maybe some turnovers that are the big difference if there's one turnover that gets played in this game. But I think that the Dolphins are going to be able to play with them. But I think the Bills defense and the defensive line knocking Tua off rhythm just gets it done. Just gets it done.
There was something wrong with my TV last week when I saw Josh Allen slide. It doesn't indicate experience and growth just on that one play, watching him slide.
Bro, and when he slides, because he's so big, he's going for like 6-7 yards. It's kind of crazy.
Going down Chestnut Ridge Hill down on a saucer.
I wonder exactly who owes him money now. What he was saying post game, man makes $258, and he's making $20 on the side for every slide or something, I guess.
They should have thought of that a while ago, man. Just give Josh a couple bucks, he'll be good. Yeah, that's hilarious. It's hilarious that he brought that up too. I don't think he's gonna be sliding as much this week. I think he was saving. He's using the slides against Washington to use them up against Miami. Listen, it's gonna be a blast on Sunday. So stay locked here at Trainwreck Sports. We're gonna have all sorts of coverage leading up to the game, following the game, all Bills season long. And guys, I feel pretty good. You guys have instilled me with some confidence, some more things to think about, but I feel good going into Sunday. You know what the best part is we get to sit here and talk about the Bills and Dolphins being the marquee, the highlight of a Sunday afternoon slate. And that just feels good. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited about it. Been waiting for it my whole life. So we paid the bills. It's time to go. Go Bills.
Go Bills.